Okay, VT running. Lights.
And you're on, David.
Why should you join the
SDP? Lovely.
Why?
This has got to stop. What this country needs is a government with a vision to create jobs and the common sense not to bankrupt the country. It's ridiculous to have builders without jobs and people without homes. The SDP will invest to stop this waste. It's disastrous to leave people on the dole without proper training when British industry is crying out for more skilled workers. The SDP will invest in an emergency training programme to stop this waste. It's meaningless to mouth rhetoric about young people being this country's future when a quarter of young people are unemployed. The SDP will replace rhetoric with action. A job guarantee for the long-term unemployed. An income strategy to make sure that the money we want to spend on jobs isn't wasted on higher prices and excessive wages. A regional policy to cut unemployment where it's highest. Good business invests in its future. A good government must invest in its people. The SDP's first priority is jobs.
So, you want to work for my company, do you? Can you use an IBM 8000Q integrated spreadsheet processing package? Any experience with microfloppy disk interface systems? What about DDK 7000 mainframe timeshare element? Data analyzers? MX200? How about a mouse? Any experience at all? So what did they teach you at school? Nothing!
Education is in a crisis. Teachers are demoralised, facilities are deteriorating, and young people are deprived of the skills that they need. This has to be changed because education is crucial to the well-being and the prosperity of our country. The SDP knows that without an effective education system, we can neither reverse Britain's economic decline, nor provide for its young people the fair start in life that they deserve. We have the common sense to work with teachers, students and parents to establish and to maintain that educational system. We value the work of teachers and we're prepared to recognise it in their pay. We will see that education in the classroom bears some relevance to the world outside. We want young people to continue in education and we will support that by a comprehensive system of grants. We also want to open up the further and higher education system to all those people who can benefit from it but are excluded at the moment. To neglect education is to neglect the future, and the SDP is the only party that can provide the future of education with a permanent and a sound basis.
25 years ago, I just qualified as a young hospital doctor, And I really did believe that we had the best health service in the world. 10 years ago, as Minister of Health, I was aware of the problems, although we were able to invest then in the health service. But now, over the last few years, I'm acutely conscious of the fact that we've no longer got the best health service in the world, and we're not investing anywhere near enough. We're not investing enough in
The Cinderella areas.
the ever-increasing number of people living beyond the age of 75 and even 80, the mentally handicapped, and the mentally ill, and the physically handicapped. And even modern medicine, modern surgery, which does need new investment and high technology, is being cut back and unable to provide the centres of excellence that this country also needs if it's to maintain really high standards. Now, a lot can be done for a health service, but you've got to be committed to it. And that commitment means that your family use the health service, that you use the health service, and that you believe in its ethical principles. And what are those principles?
It's a very simple one.
Really?
It's that healthcare should be provided on the basis of need, not on a capacity to pay. That was a noble principle, legislated for in the aftermath of war, and a principle which the SDP still upholds. We believe in the health service. We're convinced we can do more to cut waiting lists. We are convinced we can do more to raise standards. It needs more money, but it also needs better management. But above all, it needs commitment to the principle of a health service provided for the whole country, serving everyone.
There's not much point in trying to reform our economic and political systems if our governments continue to ignore the environment. To my mind, it's the quality of our lives that's important, not the quantity of our material possessions. Growth is necessary in order to overcome the problems of poverty and need, but not at any cost. The SDP believes in green growth that will preserve as much of our environment as possible and improve our lives rather than despoil them.
What about nuclear power?
I think that Chernobyl has clearly illustrated the potentially lethal dangers of nuclear power, and the SDP will only support further nuclear power generation if it can be shown to be genuinely safe and if we have proper ways of dealing with the disposal of nuclear waste. The SDP wants to introduce a new Clean Air Act to overcome the problems of lead pollution and acid rain, and to set up a Department of Environmental Protection. These are just two of the practical plans that we have to give a genuinely green dimension to British politics.
Since this film began, nearly 300 children will have died in the third world. In 1 year alone, that is 40,000 needless deaths. Deaths that have been caused by malnutrition, by filthy water, by too little medical attention. And yet over the last 7 years, this government has cut its funding to the third world by 20% in real terms. Can we allow ourselves to call ourselves a civilised society if we continue to ignore this vast human tragedy? The SDP is committed to doubling the funding given to the third world in its first parliament. In addition, we are committed to increasing the funding that we give to voluntary organisations for those voluntary organisations who are working in the third world. For every £1 raised by voluntary organisations, we will give £5 for funding for the third world. But aid is not enough. In order that the third world should develop independence and self-respect, we must develop a fair trade policy. We must give continued assistance to long-term projects for self-sufficient farms. We are not interested in turning the third world into beggars. We are interested in making them good neighbours.
present electoral system, if you don't like the winning candidate, you may as well do that with your vote, because it doesn't count. We want to see a new kind of electoral system in which your vote will count, in which you can vote for the candidates you prefer in the order in which you prefer them. The problem with the present system is that it allows the big political parties, the Labour Party and the Tory Party, to keep power to themselves, and you, as an individual voter, are powerless to try and change them or to influence the way that they think and feel. If you were able to vote for the candidates of your choice, you would have a truly representative parliament. Your opinions and your attitudes could get through to politicians and decision makers, and we would have votes that counted throughout the system.
I think our democracy will be finished within 20 years. That may sound strange. Strange. Extremely secretive.
Britain's government is secretive, centralised around Whitehall, and doesn't protect basic civil liberties. Because of the Official Secrets Act, we are denied much of the information that we need for our daily lives. Without this information, we can't have informed debate. And without informed debate, there can be no real democracy. The SDP wants to get rid of Section 2 of the Official Secrets Act and replace it with the Freedom of Information Act. As well as making government more open, we also want to bring it nearer to people. We want to replace the remote and centralised system of government with more local authorities, with devolution to the regions, and with the devolution of power to those who need it. At the same time, we want a Bill of Rights to protect the freedoms that people should be able to take for granted. Britain's system of government needs to be changed. The SDP doesn't want to take power from the people, it wants to give it to the people.
Why should you, as a young person, join the SDP? I think the first reason is that this party can belong to you. You can really influence it. I don't think there's any other political party where you've got the same opportunity to make your impact felt. It's a genuinely democratic party with votes on perhaps sometimes too many issues, the postal ballots in which the membership really does have a say. The other reason is it's a new party, and let's be clear about what we want. We want to change the political system. It's not just being a better government than a Labour Party would be. That wouldn't be very hard. Or a more sensitive, caring government than this Conservative government. That would certainly not be very difficult. It's actually to create a different structure to British politics, where instead of having a two-party divisive system, you have a change in the voting system which will force politicians to work together, which will force partnership, where you will have coalition governments as the norm. Very rarely will anyone have an absolute, total, outright majority. And in that structure of politics, you'll get much more stability. Not the stability of the graveyard in the sense that there's nothing moving, but stability that when you make a change, it's got a chance of sticking, that it's not going to be torn up at the roots every single time you get a change of government. Above all, it's a political movement that is dedicated to ending the decline of Britain, a decline economically, which we can all see, from being one of the richest countries in Europe to being now, sadly, of the democratic countries, one of the poorest. but also a decline in which we seem to have lost our self-confidence, where we don't think we do have a role to play in the world, whether it's in disarmament or whether it's taking a lead on issues like apartheid in South Africa, or whether it's having enough deep-seated internationalism to be unashamed and unafraid of working with other nations, because Britain by itself, isolated on its own, living on some imperial view of the past, is not going to have weight in the world. But Britain committed to working with others within the European community, within the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, within the Commonwealth, and using the United Nations creatively and constructively, does have, I believe still, an important role for good in the world. Now, it's that sort of politics that I think the SDP offers, and I hope you'll join us.
Yeah, it's credits. It's the best bit, isn't it? Oh, yeah. Michael Woolsey, what did he do then? David Putnam.
Oh, he's quite famous, I think. Roy Burgess.
John Paul Ashworth, he's the Pope.
That's right, yeah. I saw him last week in the Pope Mobile. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So what's the house not?
Lighthouse? Who are they?
Don't know, what's the SDP?